Hello, welcome to another tutorial video. This time we're back on smile points, this time for the poem Sing Song. A very interesting poem. So we start off with the structure then, and it's got very irregular form, and all the way through we find that the stanzas are actually different verses, different lengths, different indentations, etc, etc, etc. And all of this is to do with reflecting the fact that this person doesn't really fit in, not only in terms of culturally within England, obviously he's not fulfilling the stereotype expected, and also he's not fulfilling the stereotype expected of his father, and neither does his wife fulfill perhaps some of his own old stereotypes, but obviously he's very happy with the way she is. We've also got structure difference in the way that the wife's lines are actually indented, again just showing how strange she is to him, even though he's in a strange world. And it's not necessarily strange in a negative way, it's just, you know, there's all these things that actually surprise him, and we'll look at some of the contrasts in that a little later on. We've got the refrain as well used in the structure here, here with hey sing where, sorry, just that part, hey sing where you been, and then a little later on again hey sing where you been, and again it's just talking about the humorously referencing how people actually refer to him, or how people in the area kind of look and refer to him, commenting on the state of his shop. Also, we've got the ending couplets in the structure. So all the way through, you can see we've got these stanzas of different lengths, and then towards the end, we've just got these couplets all the way across, 4 couplets, and actually they're a lot more unified, and they're a lot more, balanced, and fitting kind of more of a regular scheme or an expected scheme, even though the last words don't change, simply because, again, that could be a limitation of language. But in those couplets there's actually a reflection of, you know, just that in this part where they're talking to each other, they're very balanced, they're very even, and obviously it shows us that their love and relationship and marriage is strong. And also in the structure we have a tone change from the start to the second half. So again, it's all kind of very, you know, there's wordplay and it's all light-hearted in the beginning, and then when we get to the midnight hour, you know, when everyone, when the last people who are making a comment on him, and obviously from his father and the people around him, all these different voices that are actually coming in, we have here kind of his own reflections, and, you know, he talks out to the shoppers, and then just this last part is a lot more serious and a lot more balanced, and probably the most stereotypically poetic than in terms of the actual subject matter, or the connotations or associations, should I say, sorry, that go with poetry. On to meaning then. Well, we've got the expectations and the stereotypes. So obviously he's got this expectation and stereotype, you know, he's going to work in a corner shop, and obviously there's a stereotype for an Asian immigrant coming over, obviously Punjabi, so we can presume he comes from a part of India. Sorry, the language used is Punjabi, so we can presume he's coming over from part of India. Obviously the amount of hours that he's actually going to work a day, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, etc. Again, the expectations as well of the people in terms of the actual shop. You know, expecting what he's actually going to have, and the actual kind of cleanliness and the actual items that he's actually going to have for them in the shop. We've also obviously got the stereotypes thrown on the head with regards to, you know, his wife, you know, is completely different in the way that she goes about things, in terms, especially with the relationship towards his parents, which obviously culturally is of huge importance. Respecting parents, obviously her disrespecting them, and that could be, as we'll move on to it now. Actually, I'll just do this one first. It could be actually something to do with culture assimilation and modernizing. Obviously, stereotypically, then it's a lot more, or people in England, or at least in Britain, where we presume this is set, are a lot more free in the discourse that they can have with their parents in terms of answering back, etc. And again, you could go into a whole type of stereotypes, but again, I'd just be opening up a kettle of fish, and I'd just say 2 words, Russell Peters. Moving on to the marriage and love, we've got some really nice kind of demonstrations of the marriage and love here, obviously in the things that they actually share right at the beginning, and obviously he says that she's his new bride, and obviously they have intimacy in their relationship, and we are rowing through Putney, which is interesting, obviously, because it could be the place, obviously, that they are in south west London, or it could also in Punjabi actually means wife, so obviously there's a play on words there. We've also got the kind of the marriage and love stress just across down here, where they actually, you know, he's just very sweet to her, and he says that, you know, you're priceless and you're worth more to me than the moon, etc, etc, etc. We've also got his self-assurance and pride, where he is doing what he wants to do. You know, he's still got this, you know, when his dad's not around, he actually turns around, he locks the door so he can actually go upstairs and spend some time, goes upstairs and spends some time with his life. He says here, his wife, sorry, I do lock. And also we've got the idea here where people are actually saying this to him first time. When I when I return from being upstairs, you know, the shoppers cry out, hey, where you been? And then they actually complain that the shop is in quite disarray. But he doesn't really care, you know, that's not really a problem to him. He doesn't actually say anything about wanting to change it or wanting to improve or wanting to better himself. Again, he just kind of goes between in between both kind of comments made by the other shoppers, you know, to talking about his wife and how special she is, obviously in a kind of comical way first and then in a more serious way afterwards. So with the images then, we're looking at what he shares with his wife, and obviously we've got the cultural reference to food, which is actually quite graphic would be the wrong word, but obviously it's quite clear in terms of the food they eat, and obviously but they're eating it within this place in southwest London, as the word Putney could show us. So obviously it's an interesting mix of cultures there. Probably not as interesting or as different to us nowadays, because especially in London, it's very, very, very such a multicultural place. You know, people probably wouldn't bat an eyelid, but if you can imagine the curry being brought to England for the first time when, you know, long before curry was a staple diet in England, or sorry, the most popular diet in England, then obviously it would probably raise a few eyebrows, as is eating with your hands, which is obviously what chapati is meant. You know, you don't eat chapati with a knife and fork, so bear that in mind as well when you're looking at the image there. We've got the wife's character. So here we have her, you know, kind of stumbling around again, not kind of very ladylike or exquisite, you know, it's just kind of a freedom in that. And obviously the word stumble here obviously is a reference as well on them stumbling through, assimilating in Britain, which is actually really interesting. The way she's actually described here, she's got the eyes of a gun, obviously kind of showing how serious she can be and how deadly or lethal she can be, perhaps with her tongue towards her parents, but then with him, you know, we've got at the tummy of a teddy, you know, so it's very soft, reassuring, warming, etc. So we're not sure exactly who this kind of anger is placed at with the gun-like eyes. Perhaps it's the parents, perhaps it's society that wants to judge her, and again that kind of brings us back to the idea of them assimilating. We've also got a really interesting image of the clock and the moon, which isn't an obvious one, but you could stretch it and justify it if you chose to. So up here we have, we've got this idea from 9 o'clock to 9 o'clock. And obviously the reference of o'clock gives us the idea of a clock face more than it does a digital watch. And if you just wanted to kind of say that here he's actually watching, like every minute he kind of watches the hours kind of tick round until he's actually in this, you know, until he's completed his day's work. But when that's done, the other clock, quote unquote, that he actually looks at is the moon, when he actually sits and stares brightly up at the moon. And obviously that's kind of another circular reference to time, obviously, because obviously the moon signifies the length of the night in some ways. But here he's actually looking at it in terms of almost like a time outside of time. You know, this is the time he just spends with his wife, and obviously that's referenced again. He's just at this middle. The only kind of reference of time he gives us on night is the midnight. You know, this mystical, magical, kind of alluring hour, time, etc. So with language, we've got the wordplay as mentioned before, the play on the Punjabi word for wife in Putney, and there's a heavy stereotypical immigrant dialect and the grammar all the way through. So and obviously some of it's again, every time I read the line I can't help but smile. Hey Singh, where you been? Again, just sounding how other immigrants would sound, or how it's expected to sound. And obviously it's really heavily kind of put in the grammar as well, in terms of I do D-lock, and yeah, sorry, there's just so many different places where you can actually pick that out. So, but the point is that he's actually trying to show again how heavily different like a person's attitude can be, and also he's asking you to look underneath that. You know, just because this person doesn't communicate in English in the most perfect way, it doesn't mean in any way that they don't live, you know, can't love fully or kind of live fully or understand fully, etc., etc., etc. So again, it's asking us in that to actually make a 180 degrees, or, you know, kind of question ourselves on our own stereotypes and expectations. We've got alliteration just towards the end if you want to pick out something more classic. We've got the cool and the concrete cool. Basically the concrete cool there is actually just kind of showing the place devoid of life at night, because obviously everyone's gone home, no one's out shopping. But also it's kind of, the concrete cool is kind of like almost like a mausoleum or a museum. It's just where, you know, everything's just kind of calm and still, and that kind of helps in his setting of this, the romance that's actually in here. It's a lot more. It becomes a lot more than just a little shop. And obviously that concrete cool, that kind of the idea of the color that's coming through to us there is the grayness, obviously, which it would be, would reflect quite nicely in the silver of the moon. And also in the language, you've got this personal address. When he actually turns around and he talks to you shoppers. So basically, again, it shows his confidence here because he's actually speaking to them. So they've been speaking to him the whole time, and perhaps obviously this is performed on stage, or he's actually like addressing the crowd directly, which would be interesting. But we'll just take it here from the poem. He's actually he stands up for himself. He doesn't go in after the day's work and kind of lament and be filled with remorse and regrets about how the day's gone. He's actually saying, well, when you guys are gone, that's when I have my best time. I don't live to actually serve you. I live for these moments with my wife, etc. So some of the effects on us then, what we can look at is a man trying to be himself. Again, when he stands up for himself there, and obviously when he stands up to his dad, and obviously when he's trying to learn things about his wife, and it's actually quite good that he kind of analyzes his wife as a person, with all the different kind of shades and character traits that she actually has. It tells us as well, might make us think about what goes on away from stereotypes again, in terms of this person not being happy with their life. Maybe they didn't want to just inherit the first generation kind of work till you drop mentality. They kind of wanted to live something underneath that and outside of that, which is everyone's right. And obviously he's mocking everyone around him. That could actually be really interesting, because this whole thing, was obviously, you could take it as a parody, as if a guy was just making fun of everyone around him, and he's making fun of his dad, and obviously he's making fun of his parents in this part, obviously through his wife. He makes fun of how the actual how small-minded the shoppers are. Well, they're just kind of picking up that, no one actually here says, well, you're not the excuse me, you're not the, they don't ask him how he is, or, they don't want to develop a relationship with him. They just want him to serve this stereotypical function. So, that maybe that's his way of mocking them. And you could say as well, like, one of the effects on it actually shows you that there's this man who actually he knows, or is blinded by, depending on which way you want to take it and how you actually want to read it. He knows what's important to him, and he knows it's not the shop, it's not keeping, milk, fresh milk in the fridge, in terms of who he is. He wants to be a good husband, and he wants to share a love with his wife, and that's what's most important to him. And we could see that he follows that, or he's just blinded by it, and he dismisses his responsibilities to his family, and etc., etc., etc. And maybe he's looking for the short term over the long term. But obviously you can actually develop that any which way you choose.